Well, now it's no longer necessary for the rich country to produce much rice because it can just import rice from the poor country. And similarly, it's not necessary for the poor country to produce much software. It can import software from the rich country. And so there are gains from trade for both countries. And they will, that means that the poor country will shift production away from software to rice, just the opposite in the rich country. And the question is, what implication does this have for wages? Well, since the poor country is now producing more rice, and for rice production, you need a lot of low-skilled workers, the demand for low-skilled workers will be higher than before, and we'll see their wages going up. Just the opposite for the high-skilled workers. The poor country is not producing much software anymore. Demand for them goes down. And therefore their wage falls. If we have low-skilled wages rising, high-skilled wages falling, we have a decrease in inequality. So what I've just now gone through is the central argument that proponents of globalization gave for why free trade would reduce inequality. And in fact, that argument historically has worked pretty well. As I mentioned, there have been a number of globalizations in the past, and this prediction of the theory of comparative advantage came true in those previous globalizations. A notable example is the globalization that occurred in the late 19th century, when trade between the United States and Canada with Europe increased dramatically due to a very significant fall in shipping costs. Now, at that point, Europe had a relative abundance of low-skilled workers. America had a relative abundance of high-skilled workers, and just as the theory predicted, inequality fell in Europe. And this is not the only example where the theory worked out as a good predictor of wage dynamics, but it's possibly the most dramatic example. Unfortunately, as I mentioned at the outset, and as I'm sure you already know, the theory has not been successful for the recent globalization. In several respects. First, the theory says that the more different two countries are from the standpoint of their factor endowments, the bigger the difference in the ratio of high-skilled workers to low-skilled workers you get between the two countries, the more trade you should expect those two countries to have with one another, because the gains from trade are greater. But in fact, that prediction is clearly false. The poorest countries of the world, which tend to be in sub-Saharan Africa, poor from the standpoint of this theory, that is, they have relatively a much higher proportion of low-skilled workers, have engaged in very little trade in the recent past, or very little. The increase in trade has been really minimal with the highly developed countries of the world, like the United States. So that prediction has certainly not come true, and the prediction that inequality should decrease in poor countries has also not come true. So that suggests that for the recent globalization, we need to augment the theory of comparative advantage. We need some more theory. And that's that's what inspired Michael Creamer and me to get involved, because we saw this as certainly a fascinating intellectual puzzle, but also a puzzle with very significant social and human consequences. And what I want to do is to spend the rest of the time outlining this theory for you. The central idea is to come back to something I said at the beginning, which is that this particular globalization has been notable for the way that it has internationalized production. That was not true of previous globalizations. It has been true of this one, and it's the internationalization of production, which, as you will see, is important in our theory. So I mentioned computers as an example of the internationalization of production, but there are many other examples. To take a very different sort of example, it's now very often the case that if you live in Europe or the US and you call up your local bank, you don't actually get someone in the bank. You get someone in Delhi, in a call center in Delhi, thousands and thousands of miles away, who probably actually